This is part two. So we talked about so we talked about the foundational model of an essay and root definitions in past videos, and we also began discussing the introduction as it builds toward the rest of the essay, and the introduction established helped to begin the relationship with our reader through the equivalent of a pickup line, small talk, and getting the digits or the date or whatever, however you want to frame that. So as we think about body paragraphs, we want to keep in mind that these are the equivalent of meaningful experiences with our reader, and each of them contains a single experience. And so once we shift experiences or topics or subtopics or small points, we need to shift body paragraphs. The content, the experience should govern our paragraph break and paragraph number. So this is the equivalent to the dates in our metaphor of the dates or the friendship hangout times or whatever it is. So when we are building relationships with people, we have these meaningful experiences. Now, if we take someone out every single weekend for the exact same experience, it's going to get boring after a while. So this links to that idea of like, don't be repetitive. Make it keep adding new information or new points or nuances of points as you go along. So whether it's paragraphs or sections or chunks, each of these things is supposed to be its own special experience, meaningful experience. So we don't go out 3-4 weekends in a row and take the person to the same experience. We don't go roller coaster rides 4 weekends in a row. But that's going to get kind of old if we don't have any time to kind of reconnect. And so we want to make sure we're providing a variety of meaningful experiences that still connect to the purpose we established in that introductory paragraph when we got a number or when we stated our thesis, that kind of thing. So as we do that, there are a lot of ways of structuring meaningful experiences. If you're going to have a meaningful date or experience, it helps to have a bit of a plan and give it a brief point. There are a couple different ways we can think about this with writing. But if you plan a little bit out for a date with room for flexibility, you establish a purpose, you provide some reason why, and then you enjoy that experience. That's not unlike some common models for paragraphing. Some of you may have heard of the pie model. Others may have heard of the axes model. Others may have heard of CSETs. Some people just know these things as concrete, detail, commentary. The pie model says point, illustration, and explanation. The axes model is assertion, example, explanation, significance. I like food better, so I like going pie, but borrowing the S from axes, so I get everybody wants more pies. So with body paragraphs, note that each of these points or parts of a body paragraph, um, they aren't individual sentences necessarily. So uh, we can use multiple sentences and should to establish. So when we're using a pie or pies model, usually there's something that states some sort of main purpose or claim. That's our point for that. It doesn't always have to be persuasive, but there should be some sort of guiding statement or purpose statement of some kind. In the same way, the thesis statement sets a purpose for the whole essay. The individual points in a paragraph, the point sentence or point section of a paragraph is its topic sentence, and that frames the purpose for this smaller experience. And so then we provide information or an illustration or an example, something more tangible and concrete. We do a reporting. So we say a purpose, we provide some information or data, and then we explain for multiple sentences. So however that ends up playing out in an individual essay, an individual part of an essay or chunk of an essay or paragraph, that paragraph should be able to be self-contained a little bit, but it should also make sense that it's where it belongs in the rest of the essay. That you've got a first date experience in the first date slot, that you've got a second date experience or a fourth or a fifth or sixth, wherever it belongs, that makes sense for where you're at in the relationship with the other person, friendship or otherwise. So in the same way, we want to provide meaningful experiences in an order that our reader will be able to connect with, because it's about helping our reader have meaningful experiences. And often it's challenging to do that if we've been thinking about, I'm writing for a teacher, they've got to read it anyways. After the introductory paragraph, sometimes we just start making stuff up or whatever comes to mind, or the term BS Some people use it. But we want meaningful experiences. We don't want, by the time we get to the third date, people starting to check out as they sit across the table from us, checking Facebook or Instagram or Snaps when we're right in front of them. So don't do that. Make it meaningful. Plan it out. Think about it. Um, so yeah. So we've got our, as we do that, the first points of pi, we have our purpose, we have our data, and we explain it, and that takes as many sentences as it takes. I usually encourage twice as much explanation as point or information or illustration. And then the last part of any main paragraph is usually, I borrow the S from axes for significance. This emphasizes how that individual moment ties back to the main purpose you said you had in your thesis statement. So that same, when you got the digits, when you asked them out for pizza, when you got the date, when you decided to continue this friendship, relationship, whatever it is, you tie back and say, hey, isn't you make it clear that this experience was tied back to that original purpose. That way, and it doesn't have to be this long drawn out thing, but it should be enough to keep the reader moving forward or keep the relationship continuing to progress and grow instead of shrivel and die. So you keep doing that, you develop these meaningful experiences, and each time they get a little more mature, a little more interesting, a little more well developed. They continue to build, they add new texture. Maybe the first one is a little more exciting, and so it's a little more engaging because you want that first impression, and the second one's a little more thoughtful, and the third one, there's a little deeper meaning you kind of have to chew on, and fourth and fifth and so on. And as you go along, you start getting this complex relationship with your reader, and each step of the way is a little bit slightly different nuance of experience. And this is the kind of thing that we're told in through marriage counseling or those sorts of studies that makes a meaningful relationship. It's about making memories and meaningful experiences that we can look back on and say, we grew here. It wasn't just like a bunch of fluff or a bunch of excitement or endorphins. And so if you want a meaningful relationship with your reader, you want to do the same thing in your writing. Okay. See, told you, helping you out on multiple fronts. So that's kind of what happens in the body paragraph. And that goes on and on and on until you run out of meaningful experiences, or you decide to take whatever next step is the next step. So if you run out of, so whatever it is, those are usually those those how you sometimes when you're dealing with meaningful experiences there in everyday life, it's usually some external factor that says when you're done. In the essay equivalent, that's someone gave you a word count, someone told you not to go past this length or go past this parameter. Sometimes those outwardly set things. In real life, maybe it's something comes up. There's some sort of disconnect with you and the person, or sometimes it's sickness or death. That's sad. Other times it's a specific anniversary, or you go from being a friend and you shift relationship somehow, or maybe it was a dating relationship and you get married, or maybe it was a marriage and you have your first year anniversary or fifth year anniversary or 10-year anniversary or have kids or whatever it is. These are the kinds of things we want to think about with our body paragraph, that there's a point where we have to stop and say we're entering a new season or a big enough shift that we need to close this one out somehow. So that's where the conclusion comes in, and that's where part 3 of our video shows up. So the body paragraphs, the body chunks made up of multiple paragraphs, I don't care how many there are, it's enough. It's enough to cover what you need to cover based on the purpose you established. But they're supposed to be individualized, meaningful experiences that make clear they tie back to what you said your purpose was in the first place. With that, let's talk about conclusions in the next video.